To a lot of you, you haven't been here in 15 months. It looks a lot different. We're starting to get back into our programs and activities. So come out and join us. And I'm going to turn over the mic to our Mayor Kaczynski. Okay? Enjoy the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. I just wanted to say a couple words in the beginning so there'll be a question and answer period after that. Here, let me take this off here. After this, and we're going to have our presentation. It's our third community forum. We've had a couple at the high school. It's our third one. Happy to have one here at the senior center. Obviously, these forums have been delayed a little bit due to COVID over the last year. We would have had them probably last year about the same time or maybe even earlier. So we apologize for that, but not much we could do about that. So it's a continuing process. This is our, obviously, you're gonna see today our conceptual plan for the Berlin Senior and Community Center. You hear the plan, you'll see where it's located, and then after we'll have some questions. This is just a conceptual plan. What we're going to do actually tonight at a town council meeting, we're going to appoint a committee that's going to look at the plans and look at different towns and look at the details of what we have now as a concept and see how we can fine tune it to the needs of the people of Berlin. So we'll work on that for the next few months, and then the plan hopefully will be in the spring to most likely go to referendum. It still has to wind its way through a few other town committees, public building committee and different things. But we want to incorporate through these forums, comments from obviously the citizens. It's for all of us in town to enjoy. So, there may be some tweaks to it and changes and different concepts brought forward. So there's still a lot of time. We'll have some more community forums as well, probably later in the fall and I'm sure in the spring before it goes to referendum. So we get all the information out there about everything, about this community center and what it will be like, what it will do for the community, what it will cost, all important pieces. So we'll start with our architect, Tom's here to give you the presentation of the plan. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
All right, got to set this to 5'7" height here. Great. Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? Oh, maybe I should put this close. Good afternoon. My name is Tom Arcari, and I'm a principal with Quisenberry, Arcari, and Malik Architects. We are a medium-sized firm located in Farmington, Connecticut. One of the unique things about our firm is we have a specialty designing community and senior centers. Over the last 15 years, we've been involved in the design of more than 30 senior and community centers. And it's because of this insight that the town of Berlin asked us to help explore the process, help explore development of a new community senior center for your town. Over the last year, and interrupted by the pandemic, we have started a process that had 7 major steps. And tonight, this afternoon, what I'd like to do is take you through our process, how we've gone about looking into the design and development of a new community center, and give you as much information as we have so that ultimately we can solicit feedback and comments from you. So the first thing we had to do is identify what's going to be in senior and community center. Where we started were 2 specific statements of need. One was developed by the Commission for Aging, the other by the Commission on Parks and Recreation, which outlined specific needs so that both departments can meet the growing needs of those agencies in the community in the future. Those statements of need were presented to the town council, and the town council directed the building department to pursue this study. So how do we fully determine what exactly has to be in this center. And the way we go about it is to approach it from three fronts. The first of which is to review the statements of need and to sit and meet with administrative staff to identify exactly what do you have in your center now and what do the specific needs regarding your statement mean for a building. So we go through an exercise, and you can see on the screen there's a list of every single space that might be in the building, whether it's an activity classroom or an entry vestibule. And we try and identify exactly what needs to be in every space. So for instance, in an entry vestibule, we need to have automatic door openers. Do we want swinging doors or we want sliding doors? Is it going to be an airlock? Will it have a walk-off carpet? How much lighting will be in that space? Do we need space for a trash receptacle? Does there have to be a Knox box there for the fire department to respond? So we look at every single space, identify everything that needs to be in that space, and then assign square footage to it so that we know that space can accommodate, that amount of space can accommodate the program needs. We do this for the entire building, and when we're done, we get a summary of all the spaces. After evaluating all the things that might be in the building, for instance, gallery space, lobbies, activity classrooms, a gymnasium and a pool, offices for both parks and recreation, we came to the conclusion that the total square footage needs of a community center to serve Berlin would be approximately 70,000 square feet. And that directly relates to and meets all of the needs that were identified in the statement of needs presented by the Commission on Aging and the Commission for Seniors, or Parks and Rec Commission, excuse me. The second way we look at approaching what's in a center is we actually come and spend time with the seniors. At the senior center, we take part in activities here. We talk to the seniors. This happened now, unfortunately, about 2 years ago, but we solicit frank feedback about what do you like about the space? What do you not like about your current space? What are things you'd like to see in a new center? And we take that feedback and try and incorporate it into the program assessment and cross-check it with some of the presumptions we've already made. Finally, the last thing we do is we look at what other communities have done, communities that are similar in size and scale to yours. Most recently, a number of communities like Newtown, Willimantic, Rocky Hill, and Bloomfield have completed community senior centers. And when we take into consideration the size of the community, how the community functions for a senior center, and what types of programs are in the center, we can make direct comparisons to check and see if the size of the center is viable. Bloomfield just built a brand new center. Their facility is 60,000 square feet. It has all of the same program elements except for an aquatics facility. So when you add the aquatics facility on top of our proposed program, similar to our program, the facilities are very similar. So that helps us believe that the size of the facility is relatively appropriate. We do the same exercise for the site. How many parking spaces do we need? How do we get the most amount of parking spaces adjacent to the building? How much space do we need for a bus drop-off? How much space do we need for covered parking for the senior center buses? How much recreation space and drive aisle space do we need? We even go so far as trying to identify how much space we need for things like dumpsters and chiller pad. When we add that all up, we came to the conclusion that we needed approximately 4.5 to 5.5 buildable acres for the project. Which leads us into the second step that we were charged with was, okay, we know we need a community center or want a community center. Where are we going to put it? So we started to look at 4 sites that were presented to us by town council and the building committee. These sites are town owned, so there would be no purchase price or no cost to the community to develop on those sites. The 4 sites were the Town Hall property on Kensington Road, the Patterson Way property, which is directly across from the high school, Sage Park property, which is on the Berlin Turnpike, and the Pistol Creek property, which is on Spruce Brook Road. All 4 of these properties were currently available, and we were directed to look at these from the town. When we start to evaluate each of the sites, what we want to do is, I guess we ask ourselves, how do we identify which is the better of the 4 sites? So we put together a matrix that puts importance and value on items or assets that each site has. For instance, is the site large enough to accommodate a center? For the most part, that's a deal breaker, but it carries a lot of weight. Do we have sanitary sewers on the site? Is it town owned? One of the biggest things that we look at in a community is, do we want to put this facility on a site that might potentially block development of a tax generating property? So one of the reasons we look at town owned sites is we look at locations that won't take away from the potential future grand list of the community. Is the site centrally located? Can everyone from a residential area locate the site? And is it safe to get to? Are there any significant financial liabilities associated with developing that site? Meaning, if we build on this site, are there environmental hazards, or is there lots of rock or ledge that would require significant financial input to build on that site? When we add this all up at each site, we get a value. And after evaluating all 4 sites, the Patterson Way site came out heads and shoulders above the other 3 sites. Of the 4, we felt that the Sage Park site and what we call the Patterson Way or Berlin High School site, those were the 2 best. But the Patterson Way site stood out above and beyond the Berlin Turnpike site because of its location. It's more central to all of the residences in the community. It's easier to access for everyone from the community. Also, being directly adjacent to the high school, it offered lots of opportunities for intergenerational programming. It allowed, if Aquatic Center is going to be a part of the program, it allowed that to be a part of the educational program. We saw a lot of positive dynamics in that locale. We presented this to the town council, and they suggested that we proceed to exploring the Patterson Way site in greater detail. The next step would be to determine how would that site be developed. So the first thing we do is look at the Patterson Way site, and on the screen is a diagram of the site. To the right of this diagram is Patterson Way. That is the south. North is to the left in this diagram, and Berlin High School is at the very right edge of the page. We start to look at what are the elements on the site that are important. Where is the sun? Where are we going to get our solar exposure, and where are the winds coming from? What is the topography of this site? One of the interesting things about this site is that from Patterson Way to the very back of the site, there's about a 25 to 30 foot grade change. And then finally, at the rear of the site, which is to the left, there is a low-lying area and a flood zone. So to develop a site plan, we have to take all of these factors into consideration. So we started to put a diagram together to the building to see how the program could work. What you're seeing here are two concept diagrams. On the left would be an upper floor plan, and on the right is a lower floor plan. Under normal circumstances, we like to do community senior centers on one level. But because this program is so large at 70,000 square feet, the feeling was on one level, there would be big travel distances from one end of the building to the other. And because we have topography on this site, it allows us the opportunity to stack the programming, provide at-grade access at both levels, and in a unique way, it will allow us to tuck some of the big program elements, the gym and the pool, into the hill, so that from the Patterson Way side of the site, the building will appear only 1 story tall. And we felt this was very important for a number of reasons, most particularly because there are residential neighborhoods that are adjacent. They are relatively small scale, and we wanted to try and match that scale architecturally. This diagram would allow us to put the majority of the senior center programs all on one floor, the upper level. You would come in from the Patterson Way side of the site, walk directly into the building, and all of the senior programming would be on one level to the left. And then around the back of the building would be the recreation entrance at the lower level, where you would have the pool, the gym, and activity fitness spaces. So when we turn that diagram into a proposed building and we start to work diagrammatically on the site, what you can see are a building that's tucked into the nook on the west side of the site. We would have parking at the upper side of the site, which is the right with a direct entrance, parking on the lower side of the site, which is the left, which also would provide a direct at-grade entrance. And then on the east side of the site, which is the top of the building in pink, we'd have an opportunity to develop an outdoor patio off the multifunction spaces with easterly exposure. So in the mornings, we'd have nice low light coming into that space. And in the afternoon and evening, the outdoor patio would be shaded by the building, and any outdoor recreation area would be in plain view. This is what the final site plan might look like. Now I've turned this 90 degrees, so Patterson Way is now at the bottom of the site and north is facing up. And you can see when you come off of Patterson Way, there would be a large parking area with 2 entrances to Patterson Way. There would be a drop-off area at the bottom of the site. Let me see if, can you see the cursor? There would be, to the left, a discrete parking area and access for the Human Services Department. That would include the food pantry and counseling offices. Then to the east of the site, or the right, you would travel past the multifunction room to the lower side of the site, where there would be parking and drop-off for the recreation entrance. And at the very back of the site would be a recreation yard. I see that more as a lawn, not formal recreation space. And then a place for playscape and child activities. So that's a mouthful. After all of that, we finally get to start having fun as an architect and explore what a community senior center might actually look like. I'm going to ask Dee to help me bring up the pointer so potentially we can see it a little clearer. All right. Thank you for your patience. So this would be the proposed upper level floor plan, or let's call it the senior center floor for this discussion. You can see at the bottom of the page is the upper level entrance, and there would be a covered drop off. So you could be pulled up under the covered drop off and get off under protection from the elements and drive into the building. You would walk into a central lobby that would have a central cafe and would be at one end of the grand circulation spine, which is up and down the center of the page. To the right of the circulation hallway, grand hallway, would be a soft classroom. The kitchen is in gray. And then a large multifunction room, which could be split into 4 different meeting and activity spaces, very similar to this, but a little bit bigger. It would seat anywhere from 200 to 300 people in tables and chairs. And all of those spaces would have direct access to the exterior outdoor patio. And then in the upper right-hand corner, in the north end of the building, would be the arts and crafts suite, where each space would have its exposure to northern light and its own dedicated storage. In the bottom left of this plan would be right next to the entryway is the senior center administrative offices. So there would be an open counter directly off of the lobby. More activity planning classrooms, 2 game rooms that look directly over the gymnasium and provide access to a walking track at the upper level of the gymnasium. And finally, in the bottom left, all the way to the left in pink, would be the human services, where there's a health screening area, counseling offices, and the food pantry. Yeah. Oh, great. You can do it? Thank you. Understood. I got it. That's fine. Up point. Vanna. Oh, no, did I say that? That was supposed to be my inside voice. Anyways, here's the lower level plan, and you can see the lower level entrance would provide access directly to the lower level lobby. Directly to the right of that would be Parks and Rec Administration, where there would be a pass-through window and a way to communicate and register. To the right, to the left, would be the Aquatic Center. This would be a proposed competition pool, 8-lane competition pool with a recreation pool and a therapy or plunge pool. There would be spectator viewing, and this would support all 3 types of aquatics components. Just south of that, just south of that would be the locker rooms, men's, women's, and family locker rooms. There is a wet side of the locker rooms directly adjacent to the pool, and a dry side directly across from the gymnasium. And then at the south side of the lower level is the gymnasium. This would essentially be a middle school sized gymnasium that has a full-size court running in one direction and 2 basketball courts running opposite. This would be envisioned as a recreation gymnasium. And then in the bottom right of the plan are 2 fitness and activity spaces. One is a weights and cardio space, and one is actually a fitness activity room. Some of the features that the center will have is significant amounts of storage, so that every space will have its own dedicated storage room adjacent to the activity room. That allows for flexibility in programming as programming trends change. A building of this nature will last 50 to 100 years, and it has to be flexible enough to change as programming trends change. The kitchen will be a full service kitchen. It'll be flexible enough to allow for it to be a catering kitchen, to be a warming kitchen, or a full service food preparation kitchen. The senior center and the community want to have those opportunities going forward. Some of the best centers we've been involved with that have the highest attendance have full service subsidized meal provided every day. I think that's a future viability for the town of Berlin, and we want to make sure that infrastructure is in place so if that programming happens, we can accommodate it. In addition, we wanted to size the kitchen and the multifunction room so that it's large enough to serve numerous other communal functions, whether it's a conference, it's community training or administrative training, or if it wants to be used as a revenue source to for outside or for community patrons to come in, rent the space, and use it for their sort of personal activities. Many towns throughout the state do this. West Hartford is one of the premier communities that does this. They use their community space to generate some revenue so it offsets the programming costs of the center. As a part of the process, we put together a design. We explored a number of different options. For the exterior of the building, our first iteration was very modern, and we took it to planning and zoning and received a lot of feedback. And they asked us to incorporate a number of residential features because this is a residential neighborhood. And what you'll see is the scale of this building is relatively low, 1 story in nature from the Patterson Way site, and it has a lot of what we would call traditional residential features like gables, water table, a cupola, and canopies. This is what the front entrance looks like. Ooh, will this go? And here's a video of the perimeter of the building. You can see as we turn to the east side, we go down the entrance drive. There's the patio off the multifunction room with covered protection from the sun. As we make our way to the rear of the site, this would be the Parks and Recreation entrance down at the lower level. So Parks and Rec would be at the lower level on the left, and the Arts and Crafts Suite would be in the upper level on the left, and to the right would be the Aquatic Center. I don't know if I can make that happen again. Come back to it. Oh, there it is. And these are some concept images of what the interior of the center might look like. This is a view from when you enter the building. There would be a cafe area that anchors the socialization and circulation spine of the building. And this is what a look of that circulation spine or main corridor would look like. Going from front to back of the building, up to the right are the multifunction rooms, and to the left you're getting some sneak peeks into the gymnasium. Here is a view of that same entrance spine looking from the north by the Arts and Crafts classroom. Again, to the left are the multifunction spaces, and at the very end is the upper level main entrance of the building and the grand staircase. This is inside the recreation entrance lobby, and you can see you get a peek into the aquatics facility. Here is a concept view of the gymnasium. You can see the running track around the perimeter of the upper level, and to the upper left are the game rooms from the senior center, with lots of natural light coming into this space from the south. And here is a concept of what the aquatic center would look like. Again, this wants to be north facing so that we don't have direct glare into the space, but plenty of natural light. You can see the competition pool in the forefront, and in the far left would be the recreation activity pool. So the second to last step we have to take is determining what would a center like this cost. Not the fun part, but the realistic part. So we've engaged a professional cost estimator to look at the concept design and put together a cost estimate based on current market trends, projecting construction to the next year. It's a very detailed cost estimate that identifies a center of this nature would cost approximately $30 million in hard cost, and that's bricks and mortar to build the building, and then approximately another $5 million in soft costs. And those are fees such as legal fees, geotechnical testing, architectural fees. The architect will want to get paid, drawing reproduction, and then about half of that cost is in contingencies and escalation. So at this early point in the process, the community has to carry a healthy contingency to cover unforeseens because it's just a concept design. And we've carried $1 million in construction escalation because this project isn't going to be built today. If it's successful at referendum in April, it wouldn't start until the end of next year. So the projected cost for a center of this type is ultimately about $30 million in hard costs and about $35 million in total project costs. The last step, which is public outreach, is what we're currently doing. Because of the pandemic, we weren't able to get citizens in a room to have a conversation. This process requires us to get feedback from the community and use that feedback to refine the design, make changes to it, make adjustments, whether it affects the design or the layout or the cost, so that before we take it to referendum, it's in a spot that the community can support, or at least we feel like we can support it. So I'm here today presenting our concept and look forward to any questions and answers you might have, or any feedback you can give us that would help guide the design. So with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Hello? Hello? Oh, that's mute. Hello? Hello?
There we go. Who had a question?
Joanne Perzuski. Hello?
Joanne, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, Joanne, we have some people in the audience that have asked to have a question. Can you
Oh,
just
yeah,
wait one moment?
that's
All right.
fine. Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
thank you.
And also, anyone that speaks, if you can start with your full name and address, please, for the record.
Hi, my name is Arlene Horniak, and I live in Berlin at Apple Tree Crossing off the Berlin Turnpike. And my question was, seeing that it's going to be 2 levels, I just wondered, was there going to be any elevator available for people that are handicapped or people that do have a hard time walking a lot of distances? I used to work at New Britain General Hospital many years ago, and I know like some people would have a hard time when they redid the building from the lobby to the elevator. So I just wondered, the concept looks like it's gorgeous looking, but I just wondered, I never heard anything about an elevator or access.
Good question. So yes, there will be a core of elevators in the upper right hand, the north end of the building, right adjacent to the rear entrance. And they will provide access to both levels. The building will be 100% compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act and will take other planning features into account. Even though we have centralized lavatories, we have lavatories split up at each end of each wing so that patrons that, you know, are more elderly or more physically challenged is a better way to say it, they don't have to travel the whole length of the building to get to the services.
Hi, everybody. My name's Gail Onanian, and I live at Orchard Ridge, like Arlene does. I'm curious because you mentioned, it looks beautiful to me, but I've got a question. The first thing that in my mind is, why do we think that a competitive pool is necessary? Or if that's also necessary, can we also have a therapeutic pool for those of us who need the therapeutic?
Great question. So the competitive pool was a program request by the town. It was in the statement of need issued by the Parks and Rec Commission. It's an element that didn't make it into the high school planning programming a long time ago. It's an element that isn't in the community right now, and it was established as a need by the Parks and Rec Commission. That's why it's in there. But what I can also tell you about the aquatic center is we're actually proposing 3 pool wells in the current design. There would be the competitive pool, which is the big white rectangle in the upper left plan. Directly to the left of that is a recreation pool. This would be a 1-depth pool of warmer temperature used for exercise classes, therapy classes, and it would be, again, fully accessible. It could be used for swim lessons because an aquatic competition pool has to be kept at a much lower temperature than therapy or recreation pool. And then finally, we actually are proposing a 3rd pool well, which is arguably the least necessary, I guess, but it is a true therapy plunge pool, which could have a directional current, and that's in the upper left hand of the pool. This would be a much warmer pool, would probably be able to accommodate 3 to 6 people max at a time, but could be used for physical therapeutical program elements. I'll miss.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Ron Klukowski, Circlewood Drive, Berlin. I drive school bus for the town of Berlin, and I know it costs a lot of money because I drive the swim teams back and forth for their swim lessons down in Meriden. So the pool would be a great idea. It's just for competition. My question to you is, because I know the slope of the land, I've been in there with the school bus in the snow, and I didn't think I was getting out. So anyways, you're talking about the pool's going to be in the back. So is there going to be room and safe-wise, if it's bad weather, if we're using that as a competition, we're going to get outside schools coming in to use the pool. Is there going to be room for the school buses or coach buses to go down there, park, be able to turn around and get back out without sliding into the building or whatever? Or are we going to have to leave them off at the top across the school at the high school?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you brought it up. Obviously, in this design process or in this presentation process, I can't tell you, I haven't told you about a lot of the little pieces of the design. But on the site plan, what you can see is as a part of the plan, we have proposed a secondary access to the site that would connect out the back of the site and tie into Lower Lane. So what that would provide is a potential secondary entrance to the site at the lower level. It might be for restricted access or program access. We have to keep an eye on traffic. One of the other reasons we're proposing this entrance is because in the mornings, traffic on Patterson Way is pretty significant for the high school programming. This would allow a second entrance for senior patrons, recreation patrons, that would relieve some of the traffic right in the Patterson Way corridor. As it goes to Patterson Way, we understand the traffic there is pretty significant. As a part of our project, we would be proposing traffic control measures in that corridor, whether it's along speed table and also pedestrian crossing, manual pedestrian crossing type signals to try and ease the current congestion and craziness that's there. There's no panacea. There's nothing that will make that go away. The high school is there. There's always going to be traffic in that corridor. But what we'd like to do is incorporate improvements to that corridor to make it a little bit better.
Hello, I'm Ann Bartolomeo from 75 Lamentation Drive in Berlin. The big question I have is about the passing of the referendum. I've been speaking to many people in the town, and they are extremely concerned about who's going to pay for the building. Will there be grants, or will it be solely the taxpayer? Because I think that's a concern as to whether it's going to pass.
Well, that's a good question. I'm sure that everyone in this room has. Generally, these projects are community funded. There are lots of opportunities for grants or smaller grants, but the majority of this project cost would likely be a bond issuance. We don't know how much that would be at this time because we don't have the final project configuration. We don't know what the costs of those would be, but all of that information would be provided by the town in the coming months as we know more about the project. I know that there is infrastructure money that is coming to many communities, and I think there'll be opportunities potentially to angle infrastructure money, but that's something that the town's administrators will be looking into in the future. Sir, oh, sorry. Just if you have a question, raise your hand just so that Jen can find you and bring the mic in the future.
Ed Grady, Woodruff Circle in Berlin. Just have a question about parking spaces, projected parking spaces around the facility.
I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. I think it was plus with the potential of more than 200. Maybe it's 250. I'd have to look and actually do the count again. But we're really careful about parking. We don't want to overpark the site. So we want to try and find the right number. The first key is to get as much parking directly adjacent to the building as possible, particularly for our senior patrons and really close to the entrances. We generally plan more handicap parking spaces than what the code or the state require. And then we want to try and balance the daily usage, build to the daily usage, and then maybe consider overflow parking either as grass parking or grass paver parking so that we don't turn this into a monster parking lot. However, I do know that there are also parking needs across the street. So this will be, you know, a shared communal resource. There'll be an opportunity not only for intergenerational programming on both sides of the street, but also shared resources across the street. Thank you. Jen in front.
I'm Sal Bordnero, 81 Gianna Lane. I'm also a Board of Finance member, and to the individual that talked about, you know, the expense of the facility and who would be responsible for it. Well, you know, for Town of Berlin, we've been dealing with a lot of debt for the last several years of, you know, spending from previous years. So we've been trying to reduce that debt, and we've done a pretty good job. But from my perspective, unless we get some grant, that cost would all be on the taxpayer, and it would be a major tax implication. So, I mean, I would want a senior center myself, okay? But we do have to take a look at the tax implications of this, which could be substantial to our citizens.
Gail Bates, Scenic Drive in Berlin. Did you say something, we're going to have solar panels on the roof?
I did not say that, but there's a strong viability that the center would have numerous opportunities for alternative energy. So let's see. So you can see that behind the pitched roofs of the building, there are some large flat roof areas. It's highly likely that we would engage into either a solar voltaic array to offset some of the electrical energy. There's different ways that can be incorporated in the design. Some are a power purchase agreement where it costs us essentially nothing to have the solar photovoltaics, and we get a small reduction in our energy costs, or you can purchase them and get a much larger reduction in our energy costs. But those flat roofs on the gym and the pool are free and clear because we've hidden all of the large mechanical equipment. One of the unique elements of this design is over the locker rooms, we've created a little well so that the large mechanical units would actually be hidden in between the flat roof areas. These tend to be pretty unsightly elements on a building. In this residential neighborhood, we did not want to see those elements, which are basically like tractor trailer trucks sitting up on top of the high roof. So sitting in that well, they will not be visible from Patterson Way or either of the east or west sides of the building. Oh.
Go here and then I'll come to you, Barbara. Let me do this one, then I'll come to you. Oh, all right, Barbara, you're up.
Jen, after Barbara, there's a couple questions on Zoom.
I want to thank all of you for coming today. This is a very important project. Barbara Gombatz, I'm chairman of the Commission for the Aging. This is a very important project for our town, and it's long overdue. And I know we're considering expenses. Other towns have done this. This is a multi-generational project. It's going to be good for the seniors. It's going to be good for the students, for all ages. And I want to say something about the cost. I know this is scaring a lot of people, but I've been in town over 50 years. When I came to town, I paid my taxes at a little building on Worthington Ridge. I got my dog license at the police station, and it was a completely different, and I took my kids to the library down on Peck Street that was very, very tiny. And I was lucky enough by the time my kids got to middle school that they got to go to McGee and not the old KGS. So these items and projects were done with people with a vision. And I'm hoping that we have enough of a vision to do this for our town, because I'm 82 years old. I may never get to see this in completion, but it's not for me. It's for the town and for the future of the town. So, and like he said, this is going to project into many, many years. So I know we're worried about the cost, and that's a factor, but there are grants out there and other towns have made it available to them. And we're going to do a lot of research with other towns to see what they have actually put into there. But the pool is a necessity. I am not a swimmer, but when I hear the presentation from the swim team and how they have to go all over to different towns, I mean, this is, why can't we do this for our students and our seniors? We'll have a track. You don't have to go down to the Meriden Square to walk around. You can walk on the track right here. You can have a therapy pool where you can sit. It's going to be a wonderful facility, and we cannot be held back by the cost. And another factor I want to mention, it has been mentioned that we partner with the Y in Meriden. My commission has long said we do not want to partner with the Y. We want a facility of our own that the town will be able to govern on our own, and no one can and no one can say, oh, you can do this, you have to pay for this, you have to pay for a program. So this is how I feel, and I want all of you to know how I feel and how our commission feels. And I hope that when the referendum comes, you will all support this project. Thank you.
We had a couple questions on Zoom. I think we'll call. Is there one more here? Oh, one more here, and then Zoom. Oh, are you? Oh, we were gonna go to Zoom.
Joanne, you have a question?
Yeah, hi, Joanne in Kensington Woods. I like the location. I think it's good. Let's see here. And I like the idea of the two pools, the large one and the warmer pool. I don't think the third one is really necessary for 5 people or under. As a senior, I'd go probably into the warmer pool. Okay, and I guess as far as the pool, what would the cost be, estimated cost be without the pools?
I can respond to that. The cost to develop the pool and the associated locker room space is approximately $8 million.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question, I think this is more for Tina. Are you there, Tina?
Tina is here.
Okay, I was just wondering, is this the only estimate we've got? Are we going to get another second or third estimate?
So this is a preliminary estimate, and as the project develops and gets more refined, there will be more detailed estimate done as we get closer to referendum, specifically if the project changes significantly.
Well, I guess I know you're one company, but I mean an estimate from a different company. I saw the towns that you have done. Southington, I don't think was in there, but I know in the last few years, they have gotten a new senior center. So I'm wondering if there's other companies that we can look at for an
So-
estimate.
So here, Mayor Mark Kaczynski here. How are you? So what will happen is ultimately it will go back to our Public Building Commission, and they would, they'll put it out to bid as far as the construction costs go. So that won't. I mean, this is the architect now that we're, that's talking to you about the plans, but the
Okay.
actual cost will be, we're not sure what it'll be yet. Obviously, we're going to go through. Obviously, I mentioned we're going to go through a committee that's going to look at a different option, look at different towns, and look at the cost. So yeah, we don't really have a final cost yet, but what we need to make sure is all the residents, like I said before the referendum, we want to get you all the information. So when you go to the polls, you'll have everything. You'll know what it's going to cost, what it's going to cost in your taxes, what's going to be in it, how it's going to help our town move forward. So we don't know that yet, but we will work on it, and it will still go through the Public Building Commission and the council and the Board of Finance before we actually have a final cost. So it's a ways off, yeah.
All right. Yep.
Thank you.
It is beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Yes, Paul Marlowe.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, Scenic Drive in Berlin, and I apologize, I missed the beginning of the presentation. Do you know on the gymnasium itself, if that would be lined to be available for pickleball?
Yes. The
Okay, thank
question was, would the gymnasium be lined to incorporate pickleball courts? And I responded, yes. The gym would be a community recreation type gym. So there would be accommodations not only for basketball, but for volleyball, for pickleball, and any other program elements that we can identify. Jen?
I wanted to speak on the pool. This is long overdue. I've been in town for over 40 years. I had 2 children go through the school system. One of them was on the swim team. I know that's only a small part of the population, but if we're going to have a swim team, you need to have a pool of your own that you can use whenever you need to be able to compete equally with schools who do have pools. I remember way back when Doc McIntosh, who was a popular guy, he was in favor of a pool at the Berlin High School. Okay, we did not get a pool at the Berlin High School. I am in support of the pools. I don't think this is even worth doing if we do not include pools. Pools are for all ages. Okay, having 3 different types of pools is going to reach every age in this town. I believe and would hope they would include swim lessons for children. How often do you hear on the news of children drowning constantly through the summer? This should be part of the education to learn to swim. As for teenagers, again, they would use the pool for their competition. It would be exercise. For the seniors, myself highly included, I have heard the swimming is the best exercise for all ages and all disabilities.
Well, the resources would be there to support all of that programming.
Vera Adams, 250 Kensington Road. Most of my questions have been answered so far, and I'm in agreement about the pool. It's long overdue. However, my question now, what's with the orange Howard Johnson's roof?
Well, why don't, was that supposed to be your inside voice? I think it popped out. Well, again, thank you for the commentary. I mean, certainly this is just a rendition and a concept We envision a metal roof on the building. It could be a shingle roof. It could be any color. And I'll have to work on that. Actually, I'll have to work on that. Thank you.
I just want to mention something. Someone asked about getting different people to get the design. I did talk with the lady in Plainville. They have done many projects for the Plainville seniors, and she had nothing but wonderful things to say about Mr. Hakari and his group. So I just feel like we're in very good hands by having him do this. And she said he's very conscious of making sure that the towns get what they need and work with them. So I just wanted to say that on behalf of the architect that we have selected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Oh, hold on, please. We'll come back to you.
Okay.
Ask the question.
Okay. Tim Thurston, Sawmill Drive in Berlin. I've heard a lot of comments, and I appreciate everybody coming out today. Somebody mentioned about it's overdue for a pool. I've lived in town for about 40 years. My wife happened to be the swim team coach at the high school. We started the swim team about 15 years ago. My son is now actually my two sons are the head coach and assistant coach of the swim team. And so I was a competitive swimmer for over 20 years, believe it or not. But I just had a few things to say, not about really the community center and the senior center more than the pool itself. We've been going around with community centers for 30, 40 years in this town. The current community center was built in 1999. It was supposed to be a 10-year community center, and that was 22 years ago. And people have been talking about it. I see a lot of benefits in this community center. The first I see is, like everybody was saying, it's intergenerational. Okay. I love the fact that I'll be able to go as a senior and maybe lift weights or do crafts or something at the senior part of it while my two little grandsons are getting swim lessons. I love the fact that it's centrally located. The fact that it's close to everything in the town, and actually, the Farmington Avenue, businesses and everything else may be able to benefit from this project. All right, it's never going to be a money maker, but it can definitely bring in revenue. I think about the community room, and I'm not sure what the space is compared to this space, but I would probably think it'd be about double. Can you imagine, big politicians like the president or something coming to Berlin and spending a dinner at our community room? It's thrilling. It's just thrilling to me. So like I said, the pool, my father always told me growing up, do it once and do it right. Okay, I've heard people saying, you have put a lot of thought and a lot of people have put a lot of thought into this project. Notes from many years gone by on community center, committees, et cetera, and you've done a fantastic job. I would like to see it. I'd like to say, my father's saying, do it once and do it right. The pool, I agree. We need a competitive pool. Personally, I would love one, but we need the therapeutic pool too. So when I get a little bit older, I can walk around the pool in warmer weather or warmer temperatures. So I find it as a benefit more than a cost. And thank you very much.
Hi, Richard Charette, Sea Green Drive. Does anybody know the cost of what it costs to send our swimming team to Meriden? I mean, you got to realize that that's not one bus trip. And, every day and 5 days a week. So it's not cheap. So therefore, we could save the town money by putting in a pool. Well, you could go swimming.
Jen, we might have one on Zoom. Joanne, did you have a question?
I had a comment, I guess, as I would like a pool, yes. As far as the pool, 8 million off of 35 million, it isn't that much. It doesn't take that much off. So I could see including the pool. And I didn't realize that the high school didn't have a pool. I just assumed every high school had a pool. So I was surprised about that. And go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you.
And I, as the architect, I didn't hear your name, but I think you're very well spoken. You're down to earth, and you explained everything very well.
Well, thank you very much. All right, well, thank you all for coming out. I will stick around for a little while and answer some more questions. Donna, did you want to say something? All right, Donna Beauvais will
Anyway,
close.
I'm Donna Beauvais, and I'm chairperson of Parks and Rec. And I just want to say thank you, as other people have said, for coming out to view this. Please give us your comments. If you don't like something, tell us. Again, by the time it gets to referendum, I think most of the town would hope that what goes to referendum can pass, okay? And your comments will mean something. The mayor spoke about setting up an advisory committee. I believe they're going to be doing that tonight at the town council meeting. And that advisory committee, I would hope, would go and visit other towns, learn lessons learned, find out what works, what doesn't work. Look at those that just built it, and yes, include cost estimates for what they had and what it ended up to be. And look at an older facility. Mansfield did theirs about 20 years ago. I was very impressed when I saw Mansfield back then. I'll take a look at it again. But again, there's lessons learned that we can all take and improve upon whatever we end up building for our town. So I just wanted to let you know, the other thing on savings, absolutely. Savings has to go into the equation for anything that's done. What they would do with this senior center versus the current community center, blah, 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 how that also affects any of the costs. Costs are a very important factor, but don't lose sight of the soft intangibles that can make our community better, come together, intergenerational. There's so many great programs that are out there that other towns are taking advantage, and I would hope that our town at some point will be able to do the same. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Tina, for hosting. Thank you, Tom, Barbara. Process will continue. Got a lot of homework to do, but we'll get it done and move it forward. Thank you all.